So is this the best new AK suppressor out on the market? Welcome to the MuzzleBroke channel, everybody, and today we are talking about this bad boy, the Zvuk AK suppressor from Zastava. Today we are going over the 1,000 round range review of this can, and we ran the absolute hell out of this at the range with a ton of different guns and a good handful of different calibers. In today's video, we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of an introduction to the Zvuk suppressor. We're gonna run you through the specs of the can. We'll go ahead and talk about my first impressions of the suppressor out of the box. We will dive into the performance of this suppressor with a traditional AKM chambered in 7.62x39, with the Zastava M90 chambered in 5.56, with the Zastava M72 RPK chambered in 7.62x39, and with the Zastava M91 chambered in 7.62x54R. We're then going to go ahead and do some pretty extensive comparisons comparing the Zvuk to the Dead Air Wolverine. Then we'll go ahead and talk about my final thoughts on the suppressor and answer the question, is this really the best AK suppressor out on the market, aka the Wolverine Killer? Before we dive into it today, guys, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the MuzzleBroke channel. I love doing this content for you guys, and a very low percentage of you who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and we'll dive right into it. Before we talk about the Zvuk specifically, I did kind of want to just give my thoughts on suppressing AKs overall. Because to be incredibly honest with you, before I got my hands on this can, suppressing an AK platform was not really my favorite thing to do. Typically, AKs are overgassed to begin with, so when you add a suppressor to the end, you get a ton of gas blowback to the face, and it's just not the most pleasant experience. AKs are typically going to be a pretty heavy platform as well, so historically, when I've added suppressors to them, it just feels like there's a huge brick on the end of the gun, and it kind of makes shooting it a little bit less fun. So for those reasons, kind of when I heard Zastava released a new AK suppressor, I didn't really get super excited off the rip, just to be totally honest with you. But I am happy to report that after really getting my hands and going through a ton of rounds with this can, a lot of my issues with AK suppressors were kind of resolved. So kind of spoiler alert, I do really enjoy this suppressor. So let's go ahead and talk about the specs of this can specifically. So the Zastava Zvuk is a titanium 3D printed monolithic suppressor with their coined PIP technology, which stands for purposely induced porosity. This can is rated for full auto use and is a 30 caliber suppressor, allowing you to shoot 7.62x39, 5.45, 300 blackout, 5.56, 7.62x54R. The suppressor has an overall length of 8.3 inches and a weight of 13.4 ounces. The suppressor does come ready for our standard AK thread pitch, 14x1 left-handed, and has a mounting thread pitch of 1.375x24, which is hub mount compatible. The overall style of the suppressor is kind of based on that vintage AK Russian suppressor type and is designed specifically to be very lightweight, have very low back pressure, as well as quick heat dissipation, and of course sound suppression. So let's talk about what we get out of the box with the Zvuk suppressor and what my first impressions were. The packaging for this can is not really anything super special. In the box from Zastava, we got the can itself. That does come with our standard AK thread pitch mount, that 14x1 left-handed thread pitch. Did also come with some rock set, so we could rock set that thread adapter in, as well as a wrench for the can to tighten everything down and tighten it on your gun. The very first thing you notice about this suppressor is truly just how lightweight it is. Now, I know this can is kind of designed to be lightweight with that 3D printed titanium design, but especially for the size, I mean, this can is light. Especially when we're comparing that to the Dead Air Wolverine, which is one of our traditional AK suppressors, that's gonna weigh a good 6 ounces more than the Zvuk. So aside from the lightweight, I did really like the traditional design of this can. Whenever we're talking about AK stuff, there's a lot of different schools of thoughts. A lot of people like some of the new school AK stuff. Personally, I kind of lean more standard old school vibes AK, and the Zvuk suppressor definitely checks that box for us. But with anything in the firearms space, first impressions don't really matter. It's really all about performance at the range, and we tackled that pretty hard with the Zvuk here. I know I'm saying this is a 1,000 round range review, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we surpassed 2,000 rounds because we shot the hell out of this can all day long with a bunch of different guns. The very first gun we shot the Zvuk on was going to be this traditional AKM, so let's take you to the range for first shots with this setup. So we got our very first shots with the Zvuk suppressor from Zastava. Of course, we are going to be running this can on a ton of different guns today, but I did kind of want to start off pretty basic with the 7.62x39 AKM with a 16-inch barrel, something everybody probably has, and is probably going to be the most common host for this suppressor. I will say the first thing you notice with picking up the gun is that the suppressor really doesn't add that much weight to the front, which is awesome. Typically with these AK suppressors, they really weigh the front of that gun down. It kind of sucks, but this feels pretty good. So, well, that's enough of me talking. Let's run it. It shoots really nice. There's really, surprisingly, not much, if any, gas back to the face at all. Yeah, there's really not much gas back to the face there. Typically with the suppressed AKs, especially this one, because there is no adjustable gas block, you're typically getting a ton of gas back, and we're not getting that. It shoots nice, it shoots flat. Doesn't add too much weight to the front. I'm happy with this so far. And a little special build drill just for you. Oh wow, it actually didn't catch the end time because it's just too quiet. So we're still running. Great job with the Zvuk Suppressor. So first shots with this were great. I was actually very pleasantly surprised just overall about kind of everything. First thing you notice when you pick up the gun is just how lightweight it feels on the system. Again, our AKs are going to be a little bit heavier than ARs, and you know, I accept that, but adding a 2-pound brick to the end of the gun just to kind of suppress it is usually not my favorite thing to do, and I really didn't get that sensation with the Zvuk. I was able to pick the gun up, move efficiently, and I didn't feel that my left arm was really supporting much more weight than normal, which was great. When firing the gun, there really was a great reduction in sound. Now, out of a 16-inch barrel, I don't really think that 7.62x39 was hearing safe in my opinion, but the Zvuk did a great job at reducing the sound signature overall, so we were happy with that. The other thing that you really noticed was that there wasn't much gas back to the face when we were firing. And that is to be said that this gun does not have an adjustable gas block. We threaded the can on and we just went for it. But we were pretty pleased with that overall performance. But obviously this can be thrown on a vast variety of AKs in different calibers, so I really was trying to give you guys a good amount of guns that we shot this on. So after those great first impressions with just a traditional AKM, we did go ahead and try the Zvuk on the Zastava M90, a 5.56 AK. Alrighty, so first shots with the Zvuk on the Zastava M90. I really like the way this gun shoots, so very curious to see how it performs with the suppressor here. Oh my god. I mean, there is just like zero gas blowback and also zero recoil on this. The M90 is a very flat shooter to begin with, but with the addition of this can, it really shoots incredibly flat. And also to note, I actually have this on that gas setting too, so it's not even on that suppressed gas setting, and there's really not much gas blowback at all. So, great first shots on the M90. And let's see if we can't register this bill drill. Again, did not pick up that time with the Zvuk suppressor. So again, great first shots with the 5.56 AK. One of the biggest things that I really love about the M90 is really just like kind of how lightweight and maneuverable it is. So that was one of the small concerns I maybe had about adding a can to the M90, is that it would really weigh us down up front and you kind of lose some of the speed and the maneuverability that I originally really liked about the platform. And luckily, that wasn't the case. The gun shot well, we had some good sound reduction, there wasn't much gas blowback to the face, and the M90 still shot very nicely with the can and was a ton of fun. Again, we do have an 18-inch barrel on this guy. I wouldn't quite say that this is hearing safe levels with the Zvuk and that 5.56 round, but definitely a good amount of sound reduction, no worse than any other suppressor I have experience with. But hey, we got more AKs, let's use them. So the next gun we threw it on was the Zastava M72 RPK. When I was shooting it with this gun specifically, I really was trying to pay attention to the weight even more, just because the center of balance of this gun is already so far forward. I was curious to see how shooting it with the Zvuk would be. First shots with the Zvuk on the Zastava M72 RPK. This is just an absolutely beautiful gun. And she is a bit of a big boy, but honestly, the little weight addition of the suppressor doesn't feel too bad on this gun, even though she's pretty thick. But let's run it. First shots, here we go. Ah! Again, not much gas blowback to the face, which is awesome. It feels really good. It's not too snappy. It's not too jumpy. I'm really enjoying this. God, and I do just love my RPKs to absolute death. One of the coolest AK variants by far. And then the bill drill, we know we're not gonna pick up on our shot timer, but we're running it anyway. Shot timer didn't pick that up, but that's all right. So after those first shots, same story as the AKM, same story as the M90. There is additional weight to the end of the gun. It didn't feel ridiculous. It didn't feel unmanageable. We did not experience a ton of gas blowback, and we got some pretty awesome sound reduction. This is going to be a 7.62x39 caliber gun, but since we did have a gun with a longer barrel, I was curious to see if that would screw with any of the internals or add gas back to the face or one of those things, and it really didn't. This can performed very well on the M72, just like the two other previous AKs. But of course, there was one other AK platform that I really did want to try the Zvuk on because she can be a little bit finicky. And that is going to be our Zastava M91, our AK sniper chambered in 7.62x54R. Now, when we did the 500 round range review of the M91, she didn't really seem to love the ammo I was feeding her. And of course, I have a ton of that same ammo, so I was really curious to see how this gun would perform with the first shots. And last, but certainly not least, we have the first shots with the Zvuk on the Zastava M91, our classic Dragunov at home, chambered in 7.62x54R. All right. Okay, so right off the rip, I am loving that we had 5 shots there, no jams. As far as the recoil impulse, feels pretty good. I do think that the M91 does have a little bit of recoil. I definitely think putting the suppressor on this dampens that quite a bit, which is awesome. And it's pretty dang quiet too. But let's pop off 5 rounds real quick, see if she eats them. Okay, we locked back, no problems, no jams. Very happy with those first shots. I was a little nervous, but all is well. So again, pleasantly surprised with that. I was really glad that this gun specifically cycled with the Zvuk. I mean, who doesn't love a suppressed sniper rifle? And with this gun, like the RPK, we obviously do have a very long barrel and a very offset center of gravity, which with the heavy can, you could really appreciate. But again, the lightweight nature of the Zvuk made this pretty comfortable to shoot suppressed. So after we did first shots with the Zvuk on the AKM, on the Zastava M90 and 5.56, on the RPK and 7.62x39, and on the M91 here, we ran the hell out of it. And we really just didn't have any problems running it, which is amazing. After we shot about 1,000 rounds through it, I did kind of take a second and jot down some things I liked and some things I didn't, some of which we already talked about. The sound suppression was really good. It did have a very great sound reduction in all of the calibers we shot through it. Another big plus for this was how lightweight it was. Like I said earlier, I typically don't love running these cans on AKs because I don't want to add a brick to the front of the gun, and I really was not experiencing that with the Zvuk. But I would say there are 2 other huge pluses to this can, and the biggest one has got to be the back pressure. Now I swear, like every suppressor that comes out now is like, oh, we're designing it to decrease back pressure, and a lot of them still have a ton of back pressure, and I'm just eating gas all day. So although the Zvuk is marketed as like low back pressure, not that I didn't believe them, but I didn't believe them until I shot it. There really was not much gas blowback to this can at all, which for AK platforms is again incredibly surprising. I did not adjust the gas on any of these guns, even if they did have adjustable gas blocks, just because I really wanted to see how much gas I would get back, and it was just incredibly minimal. The other benefit of this can that really shocked me was how quick it actually was to cool down. So obviously during this range review of the can, we shot it through a bunch of different guns, and with suppressors, when I'm doing that, it usually just takes forever for the can to cool down enough so I can unscrew it and screw it on a new gun. And that really was not the case with the Zvuk. In fact, I actually brought a lot of other projects to do during this range day because I assumed it would take forever to cool off and would take me a long time to switch, and it really didn't. Obviously, AKs get hot as hell, and suppressors get hot as hell when you're shooting rounds through them. But I'd shoot like 200 or 300 rounds through a gun, I'd let it sit there for 5-10 minutes or so, and it would be cool enough to take off. So I thought that that was actually really cool. Again, I know they say that on the box and in the marketing, but it actually is true. It does cool down pretty damn quick. So a ton of positives for the Zvuk. One of the things that I disliked about this can at first was that it was just direct thread. Unlike the Dead Air Wolverine or like our Plan A or Plan B taper mounts for some of our other suppressors, this gun just threads directly onto the thread pitch. It doesn't set on the detent pin like the Dead Air Wolverine. It is just direct threaded on. Now, is that a huge issue? Not necessarily if the can doesn't walk off. Unfortunately, during the range review, I didn't experience that. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even use the wrench that it came with to torque it onto the gun because I forgot it at home. So every time we switched it on a new gun, I would just hand tighten it as tight as I could get it. And not once did the can walk off or cause me any issues in that regard. So something I was originally concerned with that ended up not really being a huge problem. I was a pretty big fan of this can. It was performing well on all of our platforms. I really had no qualms with it. But let's go ahead and start diving into the weeds with a direct comparison to the Zvuk versus the Dead Air Wolverine. So to compare these cans directly, on all 4 of the guns we shot today, I shot them all unsuppressed, suppressed with the Zvuk, and suppressed with the Dead Air Wolverine. So those shots will kind of be playing in the background while we talk about the comparisons. The first thing you'll notice is they are very similarly designed. They both kind of have that old school AK suppressor vibe to them, and they both do come with that factory 14x1 left-handed thread pitch to screw onto your AK platforms. They are both hub compatible and are 30 cal suppressors. And that is just about where these similarities end. The Zvuk is titanium, it is 3D printed, it is quite a bit lighter than the Dead Air Wolverine. The weight of our Zvuk is going to be 13.4 ounces, and the weight of the Dead Air Wolverine will kind of vary based on how you're connecting it to your gun. Online, it says anywhere from 20 to 24 ounces. I believe this would be the most lightweight option, just with direct threading onto the gun being about 20 ounces. So we got about a 6-ounce difference. You definitely can feel it while shooting. I would say you're gonna feel that weight a little bit less with some of our shorter barrel guns, like the M90 or the traditional AKM, and you're gonna feel that weight a hell of a lot more on our longer barrel guns like the RPK or the M91. Just again, because that weight is gonna be so far out in front of you. As far as the sound suppression, I'm not gonna lie to you, these are pretty darn close. I don't have a soundometer or whatever the hell they're called, so we were kind of just earballing it, and they sound very similar. If I would have to give the edge to one, I think the Zvuk is maybe a hair quieter, but again, hard to tell to the naked ear. They both do a good job of sound suppression. I will give both the cans that. But as far as some of the other features I really liked about the Zvuk, the Wolverine just kind of didn't measure up in that sense. We did have quite a bit more gas back and blowback pressure with the Dead Air Wolverine, which I hope you can appreciate on camera, but if you can't, you just have to believe me, I guess. There was a little bit more gas to the face with the Dead Air Wolverine on all 4 of our guns. Same thing with the heat dissipation. The Zvuk definitely cooled down quite a bit faster than the Dead Air Wolverine. That's just due to the integral suppressor designs. One thing that I did want to mention about the Wolverine specifically is that the M91 here just did not like this can. We shot the M91 with no suppressor, we had no issues, and then we screwed on the Wolverine to kind of get these comparison shots, and I ran into some pretty significant malfunctions multiple times. Man, again? So as you can kind of see there, the M91 is really not liking the Wolverine suppressor specifically. That last malfunction was kind of a pain to clear there. I did have to take it to the table and like smash the hell out of the charging handle. That last one was actually a failure to extract. I have that spec casing right here. Again, for the M91, we are just running the Wolf 762x54R. The M91 just ran through a couple of mags totally fine with no suppressor. Interesting to me that the addition of the Wolverine actually caused more malfunctions. It should theoretically give it more gas back into the system and allow it to cycle more reliably. So interesting to see how the M91 handles the Vzuk. Oh, that's hot as shit. You know, I'm not really sure what caused this. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. All I can tell you is that the M91 really did not like the Dead Air Wolverine, and the M91 had absolutely no issue with the Zvuk suppressor. So something to note. Now, there is one thing that I do like about the Dead Air Wolverine more than the Zvuk, is that the Wolverine does index on that AK muzzle device pin. You can see these little divots in the front of the can allow that to index, as compared to the Zvuk, doesn't index, just threads on. Now, although I didn't have any issues with the Zvuk walking off on me, I do really like that extra layer of security that the Dead Air Wolverine brings. But like anything, there is some drawback to that. Switching the Wolverine on and off guns takes a little bit more time. Whereas the Zvuk just threads on and off. The Dead Air Wolverine is not complicated, but there are more steps. You do have to open this collar, push our indexing ring up and over, thread it on the gun, push the indexing ring back, and then screw the collar back down. So obviously not like rocket science, but it is a little bit more difficult. As far as directly comparing these two suppressors, which would I recommend? Nothing against Dead Air at all, but hands down, I have to recommend the Zvuk. They just about have the same amount of sound suppression, but the Zvuk is a hell of a lot lighter. It dissipates heat a hell of a lot quicker. It's easier to attach, and for me personally, I didn't have any issues with the Zvuk on the M91, whereas I did with the Dead Air Wolverine. I do wish there was some sort of indexing option on the detent pin with the Zvuk, but it is what it is. If I really wanted to, I could set this up in a hub compatible version and mess with muzzle devices, but no, I'm not gonna do that. I kind of just like the regular thread pitch on this. So to answer the question, is the Zvuk the Wolverine killer? The answer would kind of be yes. It's a better suppressor, it's more lightweight, dissipates heat better, about the same sound reduction. I'm going with the Zvuk all day. So final thoughts on the Zvuk suppressor. If y'all can't tell by now, I do really like this can. Like I said earlier, I didn't really care at first. Oh, another suppressor. I don't want to add a brick to my gun. And thankfully with the Zvuk, I did not have that experience. What we ended up getting is a pretty awesome suppressor that is specifically designed for AKs, that doesn't add a lot of weight to the gun, that doesn't give you a ton of gas back to the face, that cools off really quick, and that's compatible with pretty much all of our AK variants. The Zvuk did not cause any malfunctions with any of the guns we tested it for, and we ran well over 1,000 rounds with this can, and I really didn't see any signs of wear, tear, or any issues with the can itself. This is a monolithic suppressor, 3D printed, so I can't really disassemble it and take a look, but just overtly looking, there was no issues after our testing. The can performed, it performed well, it actually did what it said it was going to do in the marketing from Zastava, so I mean, I'd call that a pretty big win. It keeps our AK aesthetic, it performed very well, and it didn't hinder me at the range, and at the end of the day, that's what's most important to me. So the Zvuk suppressor absolutely gets the MuzzleBroke stamp of approval. I had a ton of fun reviewing this because I love to shoot my AKs, and I'm glad I finally found a suppressor that didn't make shooting my AKs less fun. I really did enjoy this can, and I really do recommend it for y'all. Alrighty gang, so I really do appreciate you tuning in to the 1,000 round range review of the Zastava Zvuk Suppressor. I really enjoy putting this content out for you, so if you could please subscribe to the MuzzleBroke channel, it helps me out an absolute ton. We have some really awesome range reviews in the pipeline, as we always do, so make sure you're subscribed. You're not going to want to miss them. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about today's range review of the Zvuk and what your favorite suppressor is, whether that be for AKs, ARs, PCCs. I want to know. Let me know so we can panhandle one and review it for you. Now, y'all have an awesome, safe, and amazing week, and I will catch you at the next MuzzleBroke video.